Her head hurt. It felt as if someone had driven a blunt spike straight into the center of her skull. Slowly, she opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was a crack on the ceiling. The crack resembled a snake slithering along the wooden beams, as though it were alive. She sat up abruptly, gasping for air. The room was small, with bare walls covered in old, moldy wallpaper. The windows had rusty, thick bars, and the door had no handle on the inside. There was no furniture in the room, except for the old, wobbly bed she had woken up on and a shelf in the corner. "Where am I?" she whispered to herself as tears started welling in her eyes. She stood up slowly, her legs shaky, as though she hadn't walked in days. She scanned the room, looking for anything that might help her. Her gaze fell on an old radio receiver, covered in a thick layer of dust. It looked like a relic from a bygone era. She approached it and touched the power button. Nothing. The radio was dead. Of course it doesn't work. She sighed in frustration but didn't give up. She opened the back panel and started inspecting the inside. A few wires were disconnected. With trembling hands, she reconnected them and tried again. This time, a faint crackling sound emerged. The radio had come to life. "Hello? Hello? Is anyone there?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I hear you," a deep voice responded from the other side. It was quiet, soothing, but strangely cold at the same time. Who is this?" "That's not important. What matters is finding you. Where are you exactly?" "I don't know. In some house. I'm locked in a room with barred windows and—" She trailed off, glancing around the room. Something about the voice made her uneasy, as if it knew too much. "Okay, calm down. We need to work together if you want to get out of there. Look around you. Is there anything useful?" "A shelf, a bed, and the radio. That's all," she said cautiously. "Check under the bed." She glanced at the radio. She hadn't mentioned the bed. A shiver ran down her spine. How did he know? Despite her fear, she obeyed and looked under the bed. She found a rusty screwdriver. "I've got a screwdriver." "Perfect. Now break the lock on the door. Be careful and stay quiet." Her fingers were slippery with sweat as she tried to force open the lock, but something inside her was screaming to stop. The voice was too calm, too sure, as if it knew her every move. While the voice kept giving instructions, she decided to stop listening. She began to inspect the walls on her own, and soon found a small crack through which she could wedge the screwdriver. After a few minutes, she heard a click. The door was unlocked. "Great. Now go out and turn right," the voice said, but she had already left the radio behind and stepped outside. Once she was out of the house, she found herself in a dense, dark forest. There was no path, no light, but she ran. She trampled over roots and branches, feeling the cold air tear through her lungs. But she didn't stop. She left the radio behind, but the voice still echoed in her mind. After what felt like an eternity of running, she suddenly saw the glow of headlights in the distance. A road! Tears streamed down her face as she ran toward the asphalt and stood in the middle of the street. A car approached and slowed to a stop. The driver, a middle-aged man with a kind face, rolled down his window. "Miss, what happened? Are you okay?" "Please, help me. I've been kidnapped. They locked me in a house in the woods. I have to get away." The man opened the door and let her in. As they drove, she told him everything, sobbing and shaking from shock. Eventually, exhausted, she fell asleep. But when she opened her eyes, she was back in the room. The same bed, the same shelf, the same radio. But this time, the radio was on. On the screen, a message was written in trembling, sinister letters. Play by the rules.